Acts like this very much.
Welcome to
Coffee with Toffees.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Let's do this.
Good evening and welcome back to Coffee with Toffees, guys. My name is Toffees, bringing you the news that you need. We're a few days late here. I have been bedridden with the flu for the last 2 days. So if you get a little bit of coughing or I don't sound myself, that's what it is. So I apologize, but as you know, the show must go on. The people demand their news. So let's get right down to it. Show should be pretty short and sweet today as we run through everything. Remember, this is Coffee with Toffees, brought to you by the good people over at Razer Gaming, for gamers, by gamers, equipment, and everything else that you need to fit your gaming needs. Lurkaderp over in Twitch chat, Coffee with Toffees. I like that. Well played. All right, so that said, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the scene right now. We'll run through the pro news and the tournament news, and then obviously we'll run through the tournament roundup and let you guys know kind of what's going on with tournaments in general. So, pro news for today, stuff that you need to know. Team Redemption has been permanently banned from Valve tournaments. So, Team Redemption, a team that is best known for their 3-2-2s, the match-fixing debacle of yesteryear, have been notified officially by Valve. They will not be allowed to participate in any official Valve events going forward. So, any dreams that they had of TI are now officially crushed. That said, they have said they will continue to play. They love the game and will compete, just not in a TI basis. There are plenty of other tournaments, nowhere near as size prize pools, but let's be honest. Could they have won TI anyway? I don't think so. So they'll just keep doing what they do. And honestly, I think that TI made the right choice here. I think they had to send a strong message. It's a shame that these guys had to pay the price so firmly, and if what they say is true, or they did it just once. But at the end of the day, they had to make an example. They did make an example, and it will help cut down on this sort of thing in the future. So Team Redemption done for as far as Valve is concerned. Next piece of news, Na'Vi reshuffles again. They kick Go Black off the team. He was the captain. He is no longer with them. They'll have Seneko standing in. So that makes their official roster Vanscore, Phobos, Dendi, Havost, and Seneko. And like I said, Go Black gone. Is it the right choice? I can't tell you right now, to be honest. I think that Na'Vi is in some dire straits, needs to make some changes to try and get themselves in the right place with this whole thing. That said, will they be ready for TI? I don't know. Right now, as it stands, I don't think they'll be. I know they're not getting an invite. I think it'll be hard for us to make their way through qualifiers with the current situation. So we'll see if that change is what they need. I can agree that they need to have something happen. Was getting rid of Go Black the right choice? Who's to say? Next piece of information. This is a good one here. We talked about them on the Chinese Shuffle a little while ago, but eHome, the Chinese team, has officially dropped eHome Malaysia. So you may remember we talked about this as there was a big transition. eHome Malaysia was launched as a Malaysian offshoot of eHome, and less than a month later, they have been officially terminated. So they will no longer be there to play with eHome. Now, the team has stated that they will remain together regardless of if they have a sponsor. So don't look for eHome Malaysia to disappear. They will simply be moving forward as Team MY or Team Malaysia, as you'll see in some of the brackets that we go through later during our tournament roundup. So that's kind of the big pro news that's sort of come out in the last day or two. Tournament news, stuff that you need to know about the tournaments that are going on right now. Here's a big one, and this was a pretty exciting announcement, I think, is that MLG and ESPN are getting together to include X Games, or video esports, in the next X Games again. So we did see Counter-Strike in the last X Games, and that was a lot of fun to see. That said, this time around, X Games Austin will feature both Dota 2 as well as Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. So this will be Season 2 of the MLG Pro League run by Joint Dota, and then I don't know who runs COD, but that will be represented as well. So kind of exciting time to see X Games embrace esports. And I know that a lot of folks are saying, well, we didn't get TV coverage. What is this really? A lot of you may not have been around for the inception of X Games. I remember it coming around when I was in my teens, and until that point, skateboarding, I was into rollerblading at the time, wasn't really that popular outside of what me and my friends would do on the street. And when X Games came out, started to get some television coverage on ESPN2. It really breathed a fresh air into a sport that didn't really exist as a sport at that point. Snowboarding was the same problem. I picked up snowboarding when I was about 14 in Colorado, and I loved it, but nobody was talking about it as a real snow sport. And then the X Games comes out, throws it in the spotlight, says, look what these people are doing, look how exceptional they are at their craft, and all of a sudden, it works its way into things like the Olympics. Now, I'm not saying that esports will be in the Olympics anytime soon. That is to say, though, that getting into X Games, I think, is the first step to becoming a larger market and a larger acceptance by the public. And that's a big thing. Because you remember, we did televise TI, or we did some TI coverage on ESPN3 last year during the event. And the amount of spam that ESPN got, negative spam, I should say, through Twitter and some other avenues was really appalling. People saying this is not a sport. Who are these people? You're not an athlete if you're sitting on a couch. And while I get what they're saying, it's the same thing that skiers said about snowboarders once upon a time. It's the same thing that, traditional athletes said about skateboarders, that it's just a kid's sport. At the end of the day, having things like X Games run esports is going to add a lot of credence to what we do and help us grow as a sport. So good on you, X Games, for embracing it, and good on anybody who's involved with this marketing process. So a big shout out to X Games for picking up both the Dota 2 as well as Call of Duty Advanced Warfare for X Games. I think it's Austin. It should be, yep, X Games Austin. All right, next one up. This is the last announcement for tournament news. Dota 2 Canada Cup Season 5 has officially been announced. They are going to have $10,000 in prizes this season, and you can sign up for the open tournament right now. So invited teams are Will Rec, Pain, Boreal, Void Boys, Champions of Summoner's Rift, Leviathan. So some pretty big teams. Great teams to cut your teeth against if you're an up-and-coming team. And that said, there's 128 spots for the open qualifier. So that means that if you have a team that you think could cut it, could hang with those invited teams, could get your share of that $10,000, you probably have about 2 to 3 days to get signed up before those slots fill. So head on over to Canada Cup and sign up there. If you don't want to go to the website, there is a sign-up link through the Join Dota site as well. All right, so that's it for pro news, and that's also it for tournament news. We are next going to go into the tournament roundup, which I assure you is in depth. I've had a little bit of help from my guy Proxy, who works over at Join Dota, jump in to help me sort of write this thing up, and it's going to be a good one for you. So make sure you stick around. We'll be back with the full tournament roundup, everything you need to know about your. Well, I guess everything you know about the last week in competitive Dota and where everyone stands right now, right after this message from our sponsors.
Razer Comms is a free all-in-one communication tool that allows you to stay in touch with friends both in and out of the game. With features such as friendless, groups, mobile SMS forwarding, and call notifications, Razer Comms is a communication solution for the dedicated gamer. Razer Comms' minimal in-game overlay has a panel that grabs all your messages and lets you see who is speaking in a voice call without interrupting your game.
Now I'll always know who's breathing into the mic.
It's always me.
By pairing Razer Comms Mobile with your PC, your friends can call you, no matter where you are.
All right, we're back, guys. And let's talk about Tournament Roundup. I'm glad that you stayed with us. MLG Pro League Season 1 is first up on our roster. The league phase has finished, and 6 teams have qualified for the LAN finals. Now, this will be taking place during MLG Columbus. The format is interesting because the 6 teams, it'll play a 6-team group stage, and then a stepladder bracket, and then the prize pool is a bit over $85,000. They're going to add some money for the community, but we'll stick at the 85 for what we know now. Now, there will be tiebreakers played in the case of sort of this round robin, but I don't think that's going to happen, so we're not going to get too much into that right now. Let's talk about the teams that have qualified. As far as everyone getting into the final tournament, let's go down and pick this one out right here. The final qualifiers are going to be Evil Geniuses as well as Not Today coming out of the North American bracket. We're going to have Rave coming out of the SEA bracket, and the 3 teams coming out of EU are going to be NIP, the Ninjas in Pajamas, the Balkan Bears, and Empire. So those are the teams that will be advancing to the next round of play. Keep in mind this is a round robin, so everyone will play each other initially and then go into a playoff sort of scenario from there. Now, from what I understand, in the EU brackets, Hellraisers were tied with BBC for first place in the group. The first place advanced to the LAN finals, and second place finishers from both groups played a decider for the third EU spot. However, Hellraisers forfeited and allowed the advance instead to go on to those who came out, and BBC, Empire, and Ninjas in Pajamas. So an interesting scenario from the Hellraisers forfeit because of visa issues that they cited, but that does leave us with those final 6 teams. Again, Evil Geniuses, Ninjas in Pajamas, Not Today, Rave, Balkan, and Team Empire. When it comes to predictions, I'll be honest with you, Evil Geniuses should take this without much problem. It's in their neck of the woods. It's in the U.S., easy travel for them. So not a lot of difficulty, I think, to take this win. I do think that there's going to be some interesting matches up for second and third place, however. Empire has looked pretty good lately. Ninjas in Pajamas, I think, is really amping up for TI run and could look very good in this tournament as well. Also, Rave may be represented there in the top 3. So those are kind of my picks for where this is going to go. EG number 1, and then we'll see what happens. Ninjas in Pajamas, though, really have been looking good. So I stand by the fact that I think that they'll perform well in this tournament. ESL 1 Frankfurt qualifiers. They're going strong, and we have entered the final stages. The top 2 from the winners bracket and the top 1 from the lower bracket will advance to the LAN finals. So if you take a look at the 2 here, whoever wins Alliance versus Na'Vi and Aces Polar versus Team Empire, they will both advance. So that's a pretty big matchup. Alliance should beat Na'Vi, would not surprise me. Aces Polar and Team Empire, a little more of an interesting matchup. It could go either way. Empire and Aces Polar both very, very strong. And I think what may happen here is there's a good chance, in my opinion, that either Aces Polar or Team Empire, whichever doesn't advance, will very likely play Ninjas in Pajamas on the back end of this tournament to determine who takes that last spot. That's my guess. That said, Cloud9 is still in it. Though, honestly, let's talk a little about the fact that they lost to Alliance 2-0. Cloud9 is a team that we have talked about many times on the show. They're one of the top teams in the world for their second place finishes, often not treated with the respect that I think they deserve. That said, they've had a hard go of things, and they lost 2-0 to Alliance, which I think is an interesting thing because it shows the decline of C9 to a certain extent, but also the fact that Alliance has really buckled down and said, we're going to try to make it to TI, we're going to be a competitive team again, and are doing some really great stuff to make it come back. So I think that bringing on Seven King Mad as the captain of Alliance has proven the right choice, and they've been doing very, very well with them since he came on board. So pretty happy to see that sort of rolling its way into sort of coming of age. Now, SEA, single elimination. Keep in mind, only winner qualifies for the LAN final. There's not a lot of surprises here. I wasn't even going to talk too much about it because not much has happened, to be honest with you. Brackets are going about what you'd expect. The only thing I could say might be a small surprise to me is that Can't Say Whips was knocked out in the first round. They're generally a pretty strong team if you follow the SCA scene. That said, they are gone, and I will keep track of how ESL SCA is going for you as we continue to advance in this tournament. China still to be announced in terms of who's playing where for ESL 1. Star Ladder in full swing, man. In the Chinese leagues, this is pretty impressive to me. It's not surprising. IG and VG qualify for the LAN finals. Now, there are 4 teams that will be advancing. There are 4 teams that will be, that came out of Stage 1. Newbie, VG, Invictus, and LG. They had their playoffs in Stage 2. And not a huge surprise there that Invictus and VG come out on top. Now, these are the 2 teams, so if you watch the Chinese Roundup, you can go back about 4 days ago and see that episode. We talk a lot about which teams are going to come out on top, and it was VG and Invictus. A lot of folks think that Invictus may take over the top Chinese spot from VG. That's yet to be determined, but it could very well happen. That said, LGD is no slouch. They've been performing well lately, and I think that they're going to be a lot of folks. Good point. IG lost money up against LGD today, and that's a good point about LGD. LGD is a team that, even when you go back and watch the Chinese Shuffle, we talked about them being sort of the dark horses. They've got a really good team. They picked up a lot of really good players, and if they gel today, they will be able to really make some plays and take their game to the next level. So Invictus and Vici do advance, not a surprise, but like I said, they are really stepping up and kind of doing their thing. Now, as far as Star Ladder US goes, keep in mind, or North America, I should say, keep in mind that, sorry, this flu is killing me, man. Keep in mind that EG is not playing in Star Ladder. That blows the doors wide open for North American teams. In Group A and Group B, Void Boys, Wheel Wreck, Team Tinker, and Complexity all advance. Not surprising to see Team Tinker doing well because of the fact that they have been very, very strong with the addition of Black, one of the best carries in the world, in my opinion. Advancing into Stage 2, they all played each other, and we saw Team Tinker in a great fight against Wheel Wreck while whistling. The Wheel did a great job taking one game, but Team Tinker dominated the other two and will advance to the finals. Big surprise to me was that Leviathan and EHUG both went 0-3 in the group stages and even make it to the playoffs, as did Not Today, who we also saw qualified for the MLG tournament. So very surprised to see both of them not on the list. Not surprised to see Team Tinker take the NA list in replacement of the fact that EG's not playing in this particular tournament. So kudos to them for making that advancement. Now we flip over to the Star Ladder SEA. We have eHome, MY, Mineski, Signature Trust, and MVP Phoenix all advance to the next round of playoffs here. Rave had to withdraw, citing visa issues, just to let you guys know about that. And right now, as it stands, we're waiting for that tournament to start. So those four teams, MVP, Malaysia, Signature, and Mineski, will be playing for the qualifier spot to move to Star Ladder out of the SEA scene. Finally, coming out of the EU, we have a second phase. The top two from each group will advance to the LAN finals. Group A seems to be the group of death, but with C9 weak in week 4, I don't know if they're going to advance. So as we look at this, we've got Cloud9, Aces Polar, Team Empire, and London Conspiracy making up Group 1. Group B is Scary Face, Alliance, Team Secret, and Goomba Gaming. Now, Group A is death because we've got Cloud9 up on top, Aces Polar, and Team Empire. All three of these teams have been in wonderful form lately, and I'm very impressed with how they have been playing. That said, London Conspiracy, my heart sort of goes out to these guys. I don't know how they're going to be able to stand up to the list of players they're up against. In fact, I do know because they've managed to play two teams already and have gone 1-4. So London Conspiracy sort of, I guess, being fed to the animals in this particular match. That said, the question for me is, will Cloud9 be able to maintain that top position, or will they get knocked out? I hope they do. I hope they maintain it. Cloud9 is a team that I think is very strong and deserves to be represented here. But will they return to their former glory? I really question it. In Group B, Alliance, Scary Face, Team Secret, and Goomba. So this is one where Team Secret should have no problem locking it in. Alliance, I think, is in a good position to potentially take that second spot. Alliance, I stand by this, has been on a resurgence to the high level of play that they once knew. The addition of fucking Mad has been a great pickup for them, and I think that this Star Ladder performance will help solidify whether or not that is actually true. Next up, we're going to take a quick look at D2CL. 3 teams. So basically the format is this. 3 teams from the EU and 1 from China will advance to a LAN final. After the group stage, online playoffs will decide who is going in EU. Each team can get 14 points. So that means that there's a long way from this being done. All right. So as you look at this list, standings with Bird United on top, they're 7-1. So they're not quite close to the sort of 14-point finish that you can actually garner. So this is a lot of space to sort of work itself out. That said, we've had a very strong showing from Bird United. 7-1 is a phenomenal way to start this tournament. That said, I'm really surprised. For me, the sleeper here is Ninjas in Pajamas at 2-6. They're not going up against teams that they should be losing to, yet they have not been able to take the wins home. So I'm curious as to why that is happening. That said, though, Burden looking really good. and plenty of time for the other teams in the roster to sort of catch up and get to where they're going from there. So let's take a quick look at China. Now, this group stage is finished, and now they're heading for playoffs. So the winner of the playoffs in China will go to the LAN. Sorry, I got all the playoffs. Here we are. So it started out with VG, eHome, Invictus, LGD. So far, VG has beaten eHome, no surprise there. LGD has beaten Invictus, huge upset. A lot of people thought lost a ton of money on this game today. LGD and Invictus, if you went to the numbers, if you bet on the sites, you were looking at a difference of maybe like 80-20 in terms of betting. That's how much Invictus was thought to beat LGD. LGD won, so they advance. Invictus gets knocked down to go up against eHome. Invictus will almost certainly advance through the losers bracket to face off, in my opinion, against VG again in a couple of days for that final qualification spot. So keep an eye on that one. That should be a pretty good rematch between those two teams. So I imagine the betting numbers will be significantly. It was 78-22. Thank you, Quantum Space, over in Twitch chat. So that is a pretty big difference. Summit, Dota Pit hasn't had a lot of movement in the last couple of days, so we won't talk too much about that. And let's see. Summit 3 qualifiers. Now, so in the Summit 3 qualifiers, I won't talk too much about them because the American games are going on right now. They just started tonight, and the CN was finally announced as far as what teams will be playing. As expected, both CEDC and VGP got their spots in the main quals. A little bit strange to me, though, that CDEC got free quals where Tongfu got the main, but it is what it is. Now, let's talk a little bit about what's going forward as we talk about sort of the way that teams have fallen out here based on the tournaments over the last week and what it looks like. I think we can all agree on a couple of things regarding the European League after the shuffle. CIS has sort of been making some big changes. Secret, very strong. I think we all know that there's a 100% chance that they're going to get invites to TI if they just keep doing what they're doing. Alliance, doing really well. Their performance has been very disappointing for half of the year, easily. For the first half of the year, Alliance was one of those teams that you thought was just going to lose offhand. About a month ago, I started putting bets on them because I think that they actually have been making a comeback. Bucky Matt has been a great addition to them. I hated to see it, but it looks like dropping EGM has been the right choice because their win rate over the past few weeks has been almost in the ballpark of 70%. So if they keep that up, I don't know if they'll get a TI invite, but I think they will definitely be involved, and maybe even in a competitive sense, in the next TI. Cloud9, man. They've been playing badly for a while now. We could probably even, I don't even want to say since, I might even say during DAC they've struggled. But they lost 0-2 to in ESL 1 to Alliance. They went 1-2 against NIP in the Summit qualifiers. If they keep doing this, I am genuinely worried that they will not qualify for TI. And I think that that's a big deal to not see them get there and get involved. C9's a team that I think 2 or 3 months ago I would have said direct invite, no problem. But with the performances they've been putting up, if they stop getting into lands, they stop getting through the qualifying stages, I don't know if that's going to exist. So that's something we definitely have to keep in mind. Empire, another interesting team. One could argue that they used to be number 2 in CIS. I think that they've fallen off a bit, but I do expect them to bounce back. They're a team that is traditionally pretty good, and as long as they step up and play like they did before the last TI, they tend to do really well in the months leading up to the big show. So hopefully, I look forward to Empire turning it around and really stepping up their game over the next couple of months. Now, as far as fighting for TI invites go, in the CIS region, I think the 3 teams that are the most worth conversation right now are Ninjas in Pajamas, Hellraisers, and Aces. I think that they are 100% in the hunt. They're all very good teams with very strong rosters who could very well earn the TI invite. So if you're looking for CIS teams to watch, if you're looking for people to potentially see that may take the next step in their Dota career, I would start to follow NIP, HR, and Aces. All 3 of those teams have been phenomenal lately and are definitely worth watching because they are a lot of fun to watch them play. The last thing to talk about is Na'Vi. Honestly, I don't know what to do, man. I love Dendy. I love the Na'Vi guys. I just don't see them doing well in the upcoming TI. I don't see them getting a direct invite, and I don't even know if I see them getting out of qualifiers. So I hope that changes. I really, really do. I want to see them do well, but at the end of the day, maybe the Go Black change will save them, but I do not think that will actually happen. So that said, guys, that's the tournament roundup. That's the week in review. My name is Toffees. As always, you can follow me at Toffees_Dota2. And if you would like to help support the show, you can over to patreon.com/Toffees and choose to give $1, $2, $25, whatever makes you happy to help us keep this show up and running. And again, I do apologize for my voice or sound. I've been stuck in bed with the flu for the last 2 days, but wanted to make sure we got out here so that you guys could have all the updates on your Dota 2 world and know what's going on in the week around you, because there's a lot of tournaments going on right now and they are very difficult to track. So a big shout out to Razer, our sponsor for the show. Thanks for coming aboard. We appreciate you guys being here to watch, and have a wonderful day, guys. And as always, Toffees out.